Hi everyone, Babula and I are back with you again for another episode of Astrology Now. This time we're looking at the lunar cycle around the full moon in Scorpio, but we'll be kicking off with something else before that, which Babula will, and talking about all the planetary movements, transits through this next lunar cycle. So I'm glad you can join us, and I hope you enjoy this episode because I know it's a big doozy.
That's right. There's a lot going on.
Yeah. So why don't you kick us off, Babula?
All right. So I think I might start by just commenting on, as pretty much everyone will be aware by now, there's been a lot going on in the sign of Aries. That is still the case. But on the 19th, on midnight, pretty much like late that night of the 19th, the sun leaves Aries and will have gone into Taurus. So by the time people listen to this, the sun will now be in Taurus. It's come out of Aries. So some of that fiery energy has subdued a little bit, but there's still a lot of action in Aries.
There is, and I've noticed that when I'm driving on the highways, people are speeding. They're taking risks.
Yep.
They're aggressive with their driving.
Yep.
I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like I'm
Impatient. Yeah.
impatient. Yeah.
That's right. Things have been very fiery and things have been, I mean, I have to say overall, I've quite enjoyed it because it's really boosted my energy levels, which my energy levels can really fluctuate. So feel like I've been riding this wave of energy, which I've quite enjoyed actually. But yeah, the downside of all that Aries energy can get very gnarly and aggressive and feisty and impatient and reckless.
And you can get burnout from all that too,
Yeah,
because
that's
it's an energy that's sort of like a blast, and then it just
that's right.
dies down, isn't it?
Yeah, it's immediate, it's fast, it just fires up.
So when all this Aries energy sort of slows down, are you going to crash and burn?
Well, I hope not. Because there's something else coming that's going to keep the Aries energy fired up, and we'll get to that. So we're not out of that yet, but there are some significant shifts. And for example, I'm leaping ahead a little bit. On the 29th, Venus will leave Aries and she'll move into Taurus, and she loves being in Taurus. But then soon after that, Mars leaves Pisces and goes into Aries, and Mars rules Aries, and Mars is really going to fire Aries up from the 1st of May. So there's still, Chiron's still in Aries, and the North Node's still in Aries, and Mercury's still doing its thing in Aries. So there's still quite a lot of that Aries activity. But the earthy energy of Taurus, will be starting now to show up. But of course, we've got the Jupiter Uranus conjunction going on in Taurus. It's been going on, well, for some time now. So it's really interesting. We're in a period where there's a lot still happening in Pisces, the last sign. Aries, the first sign, the fire, so water, fire, and the earth of Taurus. So these three signs, which sit close together, are all really kind of up.
Yeah.
And they're really different, so the Pisces watery influence, of course, is sensitive and all the feelings and the mystical qualities and so on, and it can feel overwhelming. And the Aries is just firepower. And Taurus is, the earthy, grounded, practical qualities. So it's a really interesting combination. It's like most of the planets are in those three signs.
Yes.
And they're just kind of moving across the cusps within those three signs.
Yeah. And I was looking at the chart, which, by the way, everyone, I now have the solar fire chart. So I'm having looking at that. But it's all happening in that top left quadrant, or most of it.
Yes. It's all gathering. Well, the quadrants really depend on the time of day, like on the chart you're looking at, but absolutely, they're all clustered together. So if we could see them, all those planets in the sky with the naked eye, we just see this great gathering of planets, of stars in that sector. They're all hanging out there together. So it's like there's a concentration a focus. Some of us, myself included, have birth charts where everything's kind of scattered around the whole zodiac. So we've got this and this and this. But right now, like children being born are coming in with this really condensed, focused energy across these three signs.
Yeah.
Primarily.
Yeah, I wonder how that's going to play out in the future. Interesting.
Yeah. So there's a certain intensity with that, because it's all focused there. So let's dive into the big story that we did talk about last time, but before we actually get to the full moon, which is an important full moon, which we'll talk about that on the 24th, as we speak, the Jupiter Uranus conjunction is almost at its exact formation. So Uranus is a slow-moving planet. It's in a sign for 7 years. It's been in Taurus since 2018, 2019, 7 years. It's only got a year or so to go. And Uranus has been stirring up all those issues associated with the very stable, practical, earthy sign of Taurus. So that's been going on for some years. So Uranus is currently sitting at 21 degrees of Taurus, and Jupiter, a faster moving planet that only spends 1 year in a sign compared to Uranus 7, for the last 12 months has been moving through the sign of Taurus, and it's been approaching, because it moves more quickly, it's been approaching, and in the last month they've been so close, and on the 21st, bang, it's exact. So we often speak of that in astrology as the conjunction of these two planets is perfected. It becomes perfect. But it's been active for a good month or so, and will be for some weeks after the exact conjunction.
Yeah. So I've been reading, and correct me if this is wrong, because I don't know the quality of the astrology that I'm reading on the internet, but is it true that the Jupiter and Uranus conjunction, it has a cycle of 14 years?
Exactly.
The last one was about 2010, 2011.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because when any two planets join, they have their own dance together. And they separate, and then they form oppositions, and then they come back. And the Jupiter-Uranus story, because some people will have in their birth chart some kind of aspect between these two planets, like I have them square.
Yeah.
And right now we're coming into the conjunction. So the last one, you're absolutely right, 14 years ago, was in 2010, 2011, in late Pisces. And I looked into this because I look back into my own story, like, oh, what was going on in my life? And I'm like, oh my God, I remember what was going on. It was a big time for me.
Yeah.
And that conjunction was happening over my Mercury in late Pisces.
Yeah. So if we go back like 14 years, I was looking at 2010, 2011, then you go back to 1997, 1983, 68, 69, 54, 55. Like what was going on in our life then?
That's right.
Yeah.
And it's particularly, it will have been particularly significant if that conjunction at that time, every 14 years, hits something in your own chart.
Yeah.
So like it did for me. And so it had a major impact. A lot of things changed.
Yeah.
And some really interesting people started showing up in my life. And so I've actually got something here. I pulled this off a PowerPoint presentation I did on this conjunction some time ago, just to give people some ideas. So Jupiter is a planet that's got a lot to do with truth and knowledge and our higher aspirations and our quest. It's very expansive, and Uranus is all about consciousness and revolution and higher intelligence. So these are two very high energy planets. The gods themselves, Jupiter, Zeus, Uranus, Uranus, one of the things they're both represented by is bolts of lightning. Like Zeus is often depicted holding a bolt of lightning, and Uranus represents or rules in astrology lightning. So there's this really high energy, high voltage quality with these two planets. And when they come together,
Yeah.
things happen.
Mm.
Sudden changes. Things are going to, and this has been going on, as I said, it's been building up for weeks now. Things are very volatile. They're unstable. In Taurus, that loves stability.
Yes, very
Yeah.
much.
Things feel very kind of uprooted, and things keep happening on a daily, like just look at the world, like it feels like the world's almost on fire at the moment. You know, there's all these big things like going off all over the place. But this conjunction can also be an amazing time for really important and positive shifts in the collective consciousness. So you get this big wave of energy that comes in. And I've been feeling this. It feels like there's this big kind of uplift of energy that can be very amazing and very positive, but you wouldn't call it stable and calm.
Yes.
You know, it's like waves of energy.
We should be used to that now, shouldn't
I
we?
know, I know. That's the world we live in. That's
It's
exactly
just
right.
like when we go through these big thing or these things that are just constantly stretching us, I think, my God, is this the rubber band of my mind and my psyche? Is it going to just crack soon?
I know, I know.
Rubber can only stretch so far, but actually that's not true. With consciousness, it's continuously expanding, like
There's no end to it.
the birth of the solar system or the universe or whatever,
That's right.
constantly expanding. And it really it really strikes me how much our mind can expand. It's like it has no walls. Yeah.
Exactly. And when you hear people talking about 3D consciousness, 4D consciousness, 5D consciousness, seventh degree, we can't even imagine what seventh degree consciousness is.
I don't even know how they measure that.
No.
Really.
And so, you know, consciousness itself it
Mm,
has no limit.
mm.
And we can only relate to what we can relate to at any given time, you know, in our evolution. So let me give you a few examples going back in history,
Yeah.
just to sort of highlight the significance of this. Like, this is, to my mind, the major astrological event of 2024, and we're in it right now.
Mm,
And of course, as we know, we've just had that huge eclipse, and Mercury is retrograde, and so it's just been a big time. So in 1789, there was a Jupiter Uranus conjunction in Leo, sign of kings, queens, rulers. That was the year of the storming of the Bastille in France,
mm,
right? French Revolution. And it was in Leo.
mm.
In 1969, there was a Jupiter Uranus conjunction in the very early degrees of Libra. The Stonewall riots in New York City, which started the gay rights revolution. Woodstock happened.
Mm,
Those of us who were alive back then, and I remember, my God, that was phenomenal.
mm.
The first moon landing,
Yep, that's right.
whether that's real or not, right? Whether that's real or not, because there's a big question mark over that.
A little conspiracy theorist, you.
Yes, I know. And I just sit there and go, either could be true. I'm open to either
Absolutely.
being true.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I don't know, but maybe it didn't, maybe it did.
Mm.
Um, Either way, it was a major happening, whether it
Oh,
actually happened or not, right?
change
Huge.
consciousness. Yeah.
So you get these shifts in the zeitgeist, these huge shifts in the collective consciousness.
Mm.
Um, the US Air Force closed Project Blue Book, concluding, and you'll relate to this, that there was no evidence of UFOs.
Yeah, what?
And she had to chuckle. And the internet is beginning to really, it's in very early stages of development and presentation.
Mm-mm.
So these conjunctions, like there's this leap, it's like a quantum leap that happens. 1997,
Mm.
there was a Jupiter Uranus conjunction at 5 degrees of Aquarius, which Uranus rules. Google,
Mm.
right? Look how that's revolutionized the planet, the world. I love this one, The Crocodile Hunter. Remember the movie? Premiered.
Oh, really?
South Park premiered.
Yeah.
It's still going, and that's been quite a revolutionary little program, actually.
Mm.
Harry Potter was published.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah, and what an impact that had. Like,
Yeah,
never heard of Harry Potter. You may or may not have seen the movies, but you know about it.
yeah,
Um, and Dolly the sheep was the first publicly acknowledged, anyway, cloned creature.
mm.
And Diana's death occurred, right? So these, and these are things, these Jupiter Uranus conjunctions, they, when they occur, there's massive shifts going on that have an impact everywhere,
Yeah,
not just in one little corner of the world,
yeah. I want to throw another one in there too. The last Jupiter conjunct Uranus in Taurus, which is what we're about to have,
Yes,
Japanese bombed Pearl Harbour in December that year.
exactly, 1941.
Mm.
And that's, World War II and the
Yeah.
bombing. That's right.
If you think of Jupiter and Uranus in Taurus, Jupiter is huge, magnifying everything, but it's huge. Uranus is, breaks things. And
That's right.
Taurus is the earth. If you think bombs dropping, that's ground breaking literally,
Yes.
isn't it? We have these groundbreaking scientific breakthroughs, but we also have literal ground breaking
Yes.
with bombing. Yeah.
Yes. That's right. And it's, very much in the realm of the tangible.
Yes, exactly.
Taurus is all Taurians know, it's all tangible.
Yeah, so
So,
there's a lot
yeah,
there's a lot of chat about how that might play itself out.
that's right.
Yeah.
So, Taurus, of course, is money. Now, I, for one, will be buying a lotto ticket because it's occurring on the weekend, because this is the kind of transit that can, for some, not everyone's not going to win the lotto, of course,
Mm.
but for some individuals, there can be a major, unexpected change or injection of wealth, which is a Jupiter in Taurus,
Mm.
in their life.
Yeah. Yeah.
It can be major, sudden changes, like reversals of fortune, which could be positive. We also know the whole financial system of the world is very shaky,
Very sure.
very much on shaky ground.
Yeah.
And there have been a lot of movements in the last month anyway in that department. And this whole issue of cash is looming very large. And see Jupiter Uranus can be collective movements by the people.
Yes.
So the people are really, having a say. They're pulling money. And the banks are saying, my God, we've never had so many cash withdrawals for years. What's going on? Well, we know what's going on.
Mm.
And so these are the kinds of things, the
Mm.
people are going to be in very real ways wanting to bring about change. So there's a break from the past in some way that happens with these Jupiter Uranus conjunctions.
Yeah, I'm also thinking, that Taurian energy could actually help us take root through the turbulence, to stand our ground, because it's very much rooted in the earth, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, so it might
Yes.
help to stabilize all this stuff that's going on too.
Yes, and absolutely. And I think that's an important thing for us all to remember. When you speak of that, I always get this image of a tree, and it's rooted in the earth, and it can withstand all the wild storms because it's rooted and anchored.
Mm.
And I brought in a statue of Buddha here this morning because I just thought this is so appropriate, because Taurus to me is a sign I most strongly associate with Buddha. And we're coming into the Scorpio Taurus full moon, which is very, very important in the Buddhist world. All over the world, the Buddhist people celebrate this. It's to them, it's like the birth of Christ and Christmas, for the Christians. It's
Yeah.
that important.
Yep, exactly.
And it represents the birth of Buddha and the enlightenment of Buddha. And his enlightenment occurred sitting under a tree. He stopped, he anchored himself, After everything he'd done, he stopped and he just was very still. And he said, I'm not moving.
Mm.
If I die here, Scorpio full moon, so be it.
Mm.
And he's just stopped. Finally, he stopped.
Mm.
That's when it all happened, and that's a very kind of Jupiter Uranus, but
Mm.
he was grounded. He didn't move, shut his eyes, didn't move.
Mm.
And it all happened. I get goosebumps. So I think that's a great image to hold, in all the turmoil and the turbulence and the madness and this big energy. How do we in ourselves, remain? We've still got to ride the waves of energy and things
Yeah.
will happen, but how do we keep coming back to some kind of anchor in
Yeah.
ourselves, in
Yeah.
our body,
It's the umbrella that we shelter under, I think, or shelter.
Yeah,
Yeah, definitely.
yeah.
Mm.
Buddha said that, didn't he? He talked about the Sangha, the community. We take refuge in the Buddha, we take refuge in the teachings, we take refuge in the
Mm.
Sangha, in the community. There's refuge in that. And
Mm.
I found that with Taurians. I know a lot of Taurians, and I find they do provide that kind of stable shelter somehow.
Mm. They're reliable. They're there. They're dependable.
Very, very.
Um, and of course, they don't like change
No,
because they're rooted,
that's right. But they've had to get used to it in the last few years because that's just the way things have been.
Oh, my daughter and son-in-law are building a house at the moment, nearly finished, and he's at Taurus, and she said to me yesterday, just the changing of no, we don't want to change, just don't want to change, no.
That's right. Don't keep changing things.
But he's just, once he's made it, that's it, because he made it structurally correct and stable.
Absolutely. And really strong.
Yes,
Yeah,
very.
that house isn't going to fall down.
Definitely
It's not.
no.
My dad was a Taurus, same thing, no, it's built to last,
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
it's great. So, and of course, one of the really dark sides of Taurus, which I've spoken of many times because I've observed this over the years, it's also a sign that can really birth dictators and control freaks who want to control and own absolutely everything. So it's one of all signs have their shadow qualities, every sign without fail. And in Taurus, it's an urge to want to control things and own everything. It's ownership.
It certainly likes to gather and accumulate.
That's right. So there are forces in the world who are accelerating in their efforts to have total control over everything. And that's also represented by this conjunction, like they're pulling out all stops. Right? So, yes, a lot happening. It's very interesting. Like, I've got a couple of other examples of people born under these conjunctions. Edward Snowden was born on a Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in Sagittarius, the sign of truth.
Yeah.
That's right.
Wow.
Opposite a whole bunch of planets he's got in Gemini. Like, he could not do that.
Yeah, he couldn't keep his mouth shut.
No. And Bob Dylan has a Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in late Taurus, conjunct his sun in one degree of Gemini. And most of his early music, and even some of his current music, always has that rebellion quality against the status quo and against the system.
I'm wondering about Russell Brand as well.
I can't remember he's got a lot of Aries and Gemini and Sag. I can't remember about the Jupiter Uranus, but could do. Always a rebel.
Yeah.
And speaking out against, these forces of control. Vandana Shiva has a Jupiter Uranus opposition, So, and every 83 years, the Jupiter Uranus conjunction, which occurs every 14 years, but every 83 years it occurs in the same sign.
Yeah.
That's why in 1941, that was the last one in Taurus, 83 years ago. So there's these bigger cycles that occur.
Huge, isn't it? Just
yeah, it's phenomenal.
It sort of strikes me about the intelligence of the universe,
I know.
and how there is no randomness in that respect.
That's right.
It's just cycles upon cycles upon cycles.
Yeah, the most amazing, extraordinary. It's all sacred geometry, isn't it?
It is.
You know, the astrology is another expression of that. You know, when you start to look into it and get into it and zoom out and zoom in, it's extraordinary. We love the zooming out and zooming in. And also look back at the last conjunction in late Pisces before we move on. There's a bunch of things that happened in 2010, 2011. That massive Iceland volcano, remember it?
Yes, that's right.
Phenomenal. That was huge. I mean, the light was changing all around the planet from that. And I remember this one very strongly. The BP oil rig explosion that occurred in the Gulf of Mexico. Man, the damage to the marine life in that was huge.
Right.
And it was an explosion. How Jupiter Uranus is that in Pisces on the water, right? Christchurch, the two big Christchurch earthquakes, 2010, one the next year in 2011 on these conjunctions. Julian Assange was arrested in December 2010. And the Toowoomba Brisbane floods, remember those in 2011? See, these big and flooding water, Pisces, you know, more water.
Yes, I remember that. We evacuated. Yes.
Yeah. Yes, you would have, because you're not far from the river. Yeah. One more thing I want to say about it. This one always makes me laugh, and I've used this in my PowerPoint teachings and so on. And it's related to this. In medieval Catalonia, which is a section of Spain, bankers who became bankrupt were publicly disgraced and given nothing but bread and water until their creditors were paid off. After a year, if the bankers failed to pay, they were beheaded and their property sold off to pay their creditors.
Oh my gosh.
Can you imagine what the world would be like if that was still the case? The bankers would not be getting away with what they get away with.
When was that again? Sorry.
Medieval times in Catalonia.
Gee whiz.
I mean, that's serious. So they have to behave themselves.
That's harsh.
They are held to account.
My goodness.
I know it is harsh, but that's lacking in our world. There's no holding to account.
Yes, yeah. Wow.
So that always makes me smile. I find it very amusing, but because that's certainly not how our world operates. Okay, so I think we should move on. There's just a lot to talk about with that. It's
just in my mind now. Thank you for that. Oh gosh. Oh.
I mean, if you wanted to be a banker, you had to really do the right thing, you know, be honorable about it. You could make your money, but be honorable. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Not rip people off. Otherwise, there were dire consequences. Not for the faint-hearted.
No.
To banking.
Wow.
Because Taurus rules banks.
Yes, yeah.
It does. Okay. So moving on. So that's on the 21st. And, you know, very strong during this whole period. On the 22nd, the sun moves into Taurus. Sorry, the sun's already in Taurus, but is now square to Pluto. 2 degrees Taurus. So it's interesting to me that the sun just moves into Taurus a day or so before the big conjunction in Taurus.
Yeah.
That's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
And then the sun, and during those few days, the sun is, of course, square to Pluto while the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction's happening. So there's a few days around, and then we come to the full moon. So that's a lot of energy over that period, where the moon will be at 4 degrees of Scorpio opposite the sun at 4 degrees of Taurus. So that brings in the Scorpio Plutonic energy again. And of course, the sun and the moon at the full moon are square to Pluto, which was Scorpio. So it is strong. Yeah, we're not out of the big waves of energy of April, you know, even though the eclipse has passed.
Yeah.
the impact of that is still unfolding, but there's still all this coming in and happening. So, you know, for anyone who has anything in their chart in those early degrees of the fixed signs, will have been experiencing already the Pluto influence, but now this full moon will be really heightening that. And of course, Scorpio full moon is all those deep emotions will all be coming up and coming to the surface, and you see these things demonstrated vividly in front of your eyes when there's young children around, because they don't hold back, you know, they just, there it is.
Yeah.
It's displayed in front of you.
It can be quite dark and brooding energy, can't it?
It can be. It can go very, very deep. And everyone always with these things, I think it's worth repeating, responds to these energies differently. We're all unique. Our charts are all unique. You know, some people are really enjoying this big energy. Other people are really struggling with it and finding it very challenging. And for some people, very strong things could be going on in their lives, you know, very difficult things. And others will be going, wow, I'm loving all this energy. So we're all different.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So WESAK, yeah, WESAK. And just one more thing about that with this full moon. By the way, it occurs at 9:48 a.m. on the morning of the 21st, 4th. For those living in the eastern states of Australia, daylight savings is over now, I think. So WESAK, there is a very long ancient tradition that at this full moon every year, people in the Buddhist tradition in that part of the world, because Mount Kailash is in Tibet, it's a mountain, extraordinary shaped mountain, and big pilgrimages occur every year. You know, people come from all over the Buddhist world, but particularly from India and Tibet and so on, and they pilgrimage arduously up into the Himalayas to walk around Mount Kailash, which, you know, is no short, easy walk.
Yeah.
And it's said that on this full moon, Jesus, the Buddha, and some other ascended masters, some people refer to this as the White Brotherhood, in their etheric form descend to the mountain and bless the world and all the people present, and bring their blessings on this full moon. So it's a very potent time, and Taurus and Scorpio are no lightweight signs.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this year they're both square to Pluto.
Yes. It's very powerful, determined.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that Scorpio, because it brings that intensity, but it's also probing, isn't it?
Very probing.
Probing.
So it can bring things out and bring things up.
And things that are hidden, like secrets.
That's right.
Or suspicions.
Yes.
Or things that are taboo, for example.
That's right. So things can be revealed, and the Jupiter Uranus energy is still very present in Taurus. So it feels like a lot of things could be really, I mean, things are cracking open.
Yeah.
But I think this can really heighten that even more. Like all these energies we've been experiencing through April are very catalytic, you know, they're catalysts. And very important. And then the next day, Mercury is stationary at the full moon. And on the 25th, it's still stationary, but it begins to come out of the retrograde phase. So for a couple of days, it's moving very slowly, begins to turn direct, and then we'll pick up speed and move on. So we're still in the Mercury retrograde phase. It's almost as though I always feel Mercury retrograde very strongly, but I think because there's been so much else going on, I haven't felt it so strongly this time. There's been a few glitches with technology and appointments and things. That's to be expected.
Yeah, I've had that too, just some glitches with, technology, but that's about it. But I think it's right. I think we're just so immersed in this high, fast, action-packed energy. I'm just trying to get my head above water,
I know. And you walk around going, oh my God, there's so many things that need my attention. And
yeah.
That's right.
Mm.
So Mercury turns direct at almost 16 degrees of Aries on the 29th. Mars is coming to the end of Pisces and actually will join with Neptune at 28 degrees 52 minutes, so almost at 29. So Mars is coming to the end of his 6-year journey through the sign of Pisces, and any planet going through Pisces will be meeting Neptune just before it leaves Pisces. So it's like really, that's such an interesting one. Mars to Neptune. Mars, as we know, is the fiery warrior of action. Pisces, it operates in a very different way, in a much more intuitive feeling way. Conjunct Neptune. God, you might want to go to bed that day and just
I'm thinking, doing a therapy.
just take it easy if that's available, if that's possible, because we can really feel a bit flat and low energy, and don't have much push or drive. But then on the 1st, Mars leaves Pisces and goes into Aries in the early hours of the morning for us, around 1:30 a.m. in the morning. That's a really big shift. And I've said this many times, when a planet's at the last degree, or even the last two, but the last degree particularly of a sign, it's very strong. There's an intensity to it. And it feels to me like it's like just before the birth of a baby, like, oh my God, is this thing going to happen? And then it moves, and then it's out, and then boom, it's made it over the line.
Yeah.
And Mars will be very happy to leave Pisces. I think it's not a natural habitat for Mars. I just had this image of Navy SEALs, those warriors who operate underwater.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting, huh?
Yeah.
Submarines,
Submariners. Yeah.
the war's going on in the oceans.
Yeah.
Interesting. So Mars, very happy. He's like, right, no more messing around. Let's go. Mars in Aries from the 1st of May all through May, and for the first 2 weeks of June, for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
On the same day, Venus having just moved into Taurus. So I love this. Over a period of 2 days, Venus leaves Aries, which she'll be happy about, and she moves into Taurus, the sign she loves to be in.
Yeah.
Mars leaves Pisces and moves into Aries. So they're both going to be moving into their own natural territory.
Yeah. So much happier, hey?
So much happier.
Yes.
So Venus in Taurus can, she can express her love of beauty and abundance and nature and sensuality and beautiful things. And Mars can get on with action and do what he needs to do, depending on where that is in your chart, of course.
So with that Venus in Taurus, we can see, because Venus is also the planet of money. Taurus likes money, material possessions, etc. So that transit could bring some financial abundance, manifest our desires, that sort of thing.
That's right.
Yeah.
It can be very, my granddaughter has Venus and Taurus. She's only young, but she discovered a couple of years ago how much she loves money. She's always counting her money. She saves it. She spends it very carefully, which is great for a kid,
Yeah, and they don't mind a good feed either.
That's right. And her brother, as soon as he gets money, he spends it, he has to go and buy something. So, but Venus in Taurus, no, she's very conscious.
Yes.
And that's the nature of Taurus. It's a careful management of resources. Yeah.
With that Venus there too, because it's about others as well. So could establish like long-term friendships as well. That's
Yes, definitely. Venus in Taurus, in relationships, in love, really likes stability, certainty. Taurus likes certainty, and needs to plan and be a bit organized. All the Taurians I know are natural organizers. They've got things sorted. Yeah, and Venus here will naturally do that. It can also be a beautiful time for anyone who's involved in arts of any kind. Venus in Taurus is beautiful for that, whether that's music or painting or crafts or pottery, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Venus in Taurus is lovely for that. It can be very productive. It's a very productive sign, Taurus.
Yeah. And it likes to socialize too, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does actually, as long as there's delicious food and a nice glass of wine in the mix, right?
That's my kind of entertaining.
That's right. And little sort of touches of luxury and pleasure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Now, on May the 3rd, so we're leading up to the new moon coming up on May the 3rd, Pluto. So while Venus is moving into Taurus and Mars is moving into Aries, Pluto is beginning to station. He slowed right down. He got to 2 degrees and 10 minutes or something of Aquarius. That's as far as he gets this year. So he will be on the 3rd, is the exact date, completely stationed and stopped. Slowly begin to move back. Now, he will take some months to move slowly back through those 2 degrees of Aquarius before, I think it's October, I think, if my memory serves me correctly, before he slips back into that last little piece of Capricorn. Still in Aquarius for some time. And we feel that whenever a planet is stationary, particularly these slower moving planets, they can be stationary for like a week. If you look in the ephemeris, you'll see they're barely moving. Their presence is very strong. So that period could feel quite plutonic, like powerful, quite intense. And then on May the 8th, that brings us to the new moon.
Yeah.
In Taurus, which is quite a doozy in itself. It's very close to Uranus and Jupiter, who are still traveling quite close together.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
It's a lot.
It is a lot. Yeah, it's a big cycle.
It really is. And I think in the previous session we did, the highlight was largely around the eclipse. But this one is the two big features really are this Jupiter Uranus conjunction just prior to this big new moon. It's always a strong full moon. Sorry, full moon. I said new moon. It's always a strong full moon every year. I've noticed this Scorpio Taurus one. This one especially because of the square to Pluto and everything else that's going on around it.
As usual, I get to the end of these and I'm going, oh,
Oh my God. I know.
I feel my head getting heavier on the shoulders.
It's this incredible combination of, understanding the big picture and we just have to stay as present as we can with all the things that keep happening in our daily life and finding some time and space in there to take those moments of stillness, of quietness, of reprieve, of breathing, of getting down on the yoga mat or whatever it is, or go for a walk, whatever it is we need to do.
Yeah. And I think sometimes because we get so caught up in the busyness, we forget that there is power in stillness.
That's right.
It's replenishing, revitalizing, and it just helps us stabilize, and that returns us to our personal power.
It does. Yeah, beautifully said. It really does. And Taurus as a fixed earth sign can do that so naturally, and I think that's through all of this, even through this whole period of Uranus going through Taurus, that's a great piece of medicine to remember through all of that turmoil. Those because we all know, I experience it, you experience, so many of us do, when we take those moments to just be still, it's like everything goes, oh, and it feels so good. And sometimes it's only need be a few minutes makes all
Mm.
the difference.
It's unplugging from that energy,
Yeah,
isn't it? Just that
yeah,
energy of, I don't even know how to explain that energy really, but
yeah.
just unplugging to be in our own personal energy bubble, you know?
That's right. And come back right here. That's right. And using the body as an anchor, when I know in Buddhism, a lot of the teachings of meditation are around actually being very present in the body and feeling, like just feeling your fingertips,
Mm,
just feeling your tongue in your mouth, like using the senses to bring ourselves right back into the present moment, because the body is right here in the present,
mm, mm,
you
mm.
know, and it's such an anchor, and nature, of course, is very helpful with that too.
Yeah.
Feeling the air on our skin. It's
Mm,
so, one of the things I've always loved about Taurus is something so basic and simple about it that is so profound. Like it's so
mm,
fundamental,
mm.
and we forget.
Yeah. The times we live in now are very, well, let's put it this way. When I was younger, I used to think about the idea around retiring, for example. You would have time to yourself. You may decide to just sit on the veranda and read the newspaper every day, which we did then, or someone might like to go fishing, or someone might like to go on more nature walks, or those sorts of things. And the idea in those days, life was simpler,
Mm.
at least for us. I don't know about in other areas, but on a personal level, life was simpler. There wasn't so much to actually become involved in.
Mm.
So, but now when people think of retiring, it's not retiring at all. It's about pursuing your interests. And there are so many things to be interested in the world today,
That's
so
right.
many things to continually learn. That group's called the University of the Third Age is absolutely true. You're going back to school to start, learn another phase of your existence. It's just,
Exactly, because when people retire from a regular job, they're no longer bound by the time and schedule of that, and they're free to do all these other things. And how many people do we know, women often, it seems to me, but not exclusively, who retire and their lives are so full they don't stop?
and they say, I don't know how I did all this before, working and
That's
running a household and having kids.
that's right.
Yeah,
That's because yeah, I think it's part of the period we're in. Life is
yeah,
big.
yes.
It's really big now
Yeah.
because we're going through this. There's so many reasons for that, and going through this huge galactic shift. The whole planet and the whole of humanity is going through this together, and
Mm,
phenomenal. It's
mm. And I
what a time to be alive. They
Oh,
as
absolutely, absolutely. I think the change in technology has a lot to do with that,
yes,
because
yeah,
we can just self-educate by sitting at home and watching things, how-tos on YouTube and stuff like
that's
that.
right. And all these amazing videos and podcasts that people put out about everything.
Yeah, it's like you got to give the brain a rest every now and then, people,
That's
or the
right.
mind, I should say. So, yeah,
That's
that's what we need to unplug from, to just be simply be.
exactly, simply be. And that's why the body, and coming back to the breath and the sensations, the mind just slows right down, doesn't it? Yeah.
Mm,
Or listening to a beautiful piece of music and getting lost
mm,
in that.
mm.
Yeah.
Well, I now have to plunge back into the world.
That's right. The day unfolds in front of us.
Oh, but thank you so much for all your knowledge and wisdom and insights, your
Oh, you're
astrological insights about
very welcome.
what we're all going through and helping to articulate what we're all experiencing and feeling. That's
Well, it's helped me so much in my life. And so it's a great pleasure for me to actually share, because I see how it helps people, in
mm,
my, it just does. And it's a wonderful gift. It's a gift to me, astrology. And I know many astrologers who feel the same way.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So, everyone, we will be back in a couple of weeks for the next lunar cycle. Remember, if you enjoyed this episode, please feel like it. If you want to share, please do leave your comments. We love the comments. And look, until next time, stay safe, be well, and slow down and enjoy your life.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah.
Okay, until then, see you next time.
Bye, everyone.
Bye for now.